Ladies and gentlemen, on my show today, the Lewis Nichols Show, I'm so excited to be joined by my next guest. We've been talking a lot over email and we've had some video calls, and he's joined us today. So let's say hello to Rico. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Really good. I was going to say, the back of your chair kind of is like some of the costumes that you used to wear.
Oh, the back of my shirt?
The leopard print on the chair.
Oh, yes. Yeah, unintentional. Good look, though. Yeah, I was more towards the tiger stripe. This is more the leopard print. I preferred tiger, but hey, if it's exotic, it's got to be exotic. So.
And see what I found in my collection today when I looked in the loft.
Who's that ugly guy?
Yeah, I found that earlier on. I couldn't believe it.
Wow, that's a good one. That's when Charlie and I were tag champions.
Yeah, I got two of you. So how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Lots gone on since I've retired, and just I don't know if you know or the fans know in UK, but I got really, really sick in 2016 to 2019, where I almost passed away twice. It was really bad. Doctors didn't know what was going on and couldn't help me. All they just said, well, if that's that, let's take another pill, take another pill, take another pill. Everything was take another pill. And the only thing I didn't take was pain pills because of the opioid thing, and I didn't want to get addicted and not know where I was at. So to be honest and transparent, I substituted tequila for pain medicine. So just to be honest and full disclosure to everybody, you know, I didn't just sit here writhe in pain all the time. But, you know, when it got bad to where I couldn't take it, I just poured me a couple shots of Patron and I just laid in bed with that. But I was in bed most of the time, you know, after, and I've said this before, but I was getting sick prior to when I fell sick. I just was too stubborn to notice the symptoms. I just thought I was getting old, you know, and this is part of getting old and the life you've lived with everything from American Gladiators, you know, to Stuntman, to the Power Team and other athletic events, and then eventually WWE. I just thought this is the price that I was going to pay, which I was okay with it then and I'm okay with it now. But things started going wrong. Numbness in the legs while I was on duty as a police officer. All of a sudden, one eye just getting completely black. I couldn't see out of it. Numbness down my left arm, which usually is a sign of a heart attack or heart-related issues. And being lethargic sometimes. Just can't really get up there. Always fatigued. Tired all the time, which was just the exact opposite of me. So through 2015, I fought through all of that until January 2016. And then due to my ex-wife, got me to go to the hospital. And they said, there's nothing wrong with you, but we'll give you pain medicine. I said, I want to breathe. That's the problem. The pain, fine. I want to breathe. I'm not. An elephant is on my chest. So they sent me home, said there's nothing we can do. 9 days later, I go to my doctor, and the next day they find 2 blood clots, 1 in each lung. And I had to emergency admit into the hospital and go through a 10-day treatment to remove the blood clots in my lungs, or else I'd have gone. And then that put me in bed. So I was bedridden for 20 hours a day. You know, I got up to take my granddaughter to school and pick her up from school, but I was in bed the rest of the day. And about 2 months after that episode, ended up with pneumonia. And then that put me in the hospital again, almost killed me with the fluid in my lungs. And then an array of things went wrong. I had 2 degenerating discs in the neck, in the back. I had to be put on a CPAP machine because I wouldn't breathe during the night. I was, in fact, the machine they got me sent information to my doctor via Wi-Fi. So, because that's how critical he thought I was. And I had an app on my cell phone where I could view what went to the doctor, and it was saying I would quit breathing anywhere from 15 to 18 times an hour. You know, that's a lot of time to stop breathing an hour. You know, and excuse me one second, I need to turn off the notification on my cell phone. So I went through a bunch of that, and I did it for 3 years. And then a friend came to me, I hadn't seen in 4 years, had me watch 5 different documentaries, and I turned vegan and went on a juice fast. And in 3 years, what doctors couldn't fix, juicing and changing my diet did in 3 months.
Incredible.
I mean, I had my blood tested when I was sick, and that was January. And my cholesterol was 252. I had plaque in my arteries, had fatty tissue on my liver, and I was pre-diabetic by this time in my life. And I was 272 pounds, and not in a good way. I'm talking about a 45-inch waist. So I did this juice diet. I followed what these documentaries said. And 4 months later, I went to my cancer doctor. Not that I had cancer, but you had a disease of the blood, you have to go to a cancer doctor. You know, so I had blood clots, embolisms. So that qualified me for this type of doctor. So after 4 months, he took my blood and everything, and I was down to 204 pounds. Cholesterol was 104. Fatty tissue on the liver disappeared. Plaque in my arteries were gone, and I was not pre-diabetic. So to those people out there going, oh, just a bunch of juice and you changing your diet did all of it? Yeah. And I haven't found anybody yet, but I do have the whole 60 days on video. I just don't know how to put it together and put it on YouTube. But it shows my transformation. Weekly pictures, weekly weights, what I was eating, how I was juicing, everything. It shows everything. And if I didn't see these 5 documentaries, I wouldn't have done it.
I mean, I've got a lot of questions, which I'm going to go on to a little bit later in the show about your health. I wanted to start at the very kind of beginning for you, which is, you know, we all know you for the character of Rico in WWE, but I wanted to know where your passion actually came from for wrestling, and how did you actually get into it?
Oh, the wrestling. Oh, my goodness. I mean, when I was growing up, it was Vern Gagne's league, AWA. I mean, Rocky Johnson, the Sheik, not the Iron Sheik, but the Sheik that had the loaded boot, you know, all those guys from AWA. They used to come on Vegas when I was a young man, which was many moons ago, when our TV stations only had a few channels. I had Channel 3, Channel 5, Channel 8, Channel 10, which is PBS, Public Broadcasting, Channel 13, and 2 UHF channels that were just ultra high frequency. And every Saturday, my brother and I would get up and watch cartoons, and then right after the cartoons came big time wrestling. And that's what I used to watch on Saturday. So I loved wrestling when I was a kid, you know, and as I got older, I still followed, even in the 80s. I am a mark for Ultimate Warrior, Macho Man, Hogan, Honky Tonk, Junkyard Dog, Ravishing Rick Rude, Mr. Perfect, all those guys, you know, because they were characters in a live, not really movie, just a live show, a stage production. There was no cut, stuntman come in, or let's shoot it from this angle, let's shoot it from that. It was a show right then and there, live. And I just grew up with that, loving that style of entertainment. I just never knew how to get into it.
I was going to say, that's the other thing. Obviously, watching it and being a fan is completely different to training and actually, you know, becoming a WWE. So I know there was a long time at the developmental kind of place that you were at. So tell us about your development with WWE, because you worked with John Cena, didn't you, as well?
Well, that's the other way around. Do you want me to go how I started in wrestling, or how I went after I signed?
How you started would be, be good.
Okay, here I am, 38 and a half years old. I'm a bodyguard. I'm an executive protection agent. I was in Florida working a client. My brother owned a bail bonds business in Las Vegas, and he asked me to come out and work for him as a general manager. Well, I told him no for a while, but family's family. I mean, when family calls, asks for help, you gotta come. So I resigned from my bodyguard job in Florida, came to Las Vegas, had to get my bail bonds license, and go to class and get my license, because the Nevada Division of Insurance handles all bail bonds and stuff like that. And then I was his general manager at his bail bonds agency, which got people out of jail. For those in the UK that don't understand bail bonds, somebody's thrown in jail and they have a price to get out of jail. And some of it sometimes is very high into in American dollars, which I know doesn't equal the pound, $20,000, $30,000 to let this person out of jail, if not more. Well, a lot of families cannot come up with $20,000 or $30,000. So a bail bondsman asks for 10% of whatever the court decides the bail is. Let's say $5,000. So 10% is $500. You pay that to me. You don't get that back. And I put up a certificate, a bond, stating that this person will show up to court and he will do whatever the court says. So I put up the 5,000, they put up the 500, and then I put stipulations on the so-called sole customer / suspect.
Yeah.
He has to abide by rules depending on the seriousness of the crime. If it was just warrants for traffic citations, that's not too serious. But something as bad as child abuse, which I consider bad, sexual assault, bad, domestic violence, bad. Those people were put on different conditions and had a higher. We charged 10%, but then we would ask for collateral. Your car, a lien on your house, or just to make sure you showed up to court. Once they showed up to court, us as bail agents were free. So along that rabbit hole, I apologize. My brother was wrestling in a little tiny league in San Bernardino called the Empire Wrestling Federation, EWF. Christopher Daniels started there. I'm sorry, I'm having a senior moment. Another gentleman was there. Frankie Kazarian was also in EWF. And in fact, in 2019, EWF gave me the honor and inducted me into their little Hall of Fame, which is a great honor. So I worked with that league, and my brother was going just to have fun. He asked me to go. So I said, okay, I'll go just to have fun. So Jesse Hernandez was the promoter, and he was teaching me how to wrestle. Well, I had already won the American Gladiators then, and I was, and that's what they threw at the fans is Rico, the American Gladiator champion, ultimate good guy, truth, justice, that's Superman. But, but you understand where they were going with it. American Gladiator champion. So after about 8 months of training, which we would go twice a week. Now, mind you, this is in California. I live in Las Vegas, Nevada. So it was a 3.5-hour drive to San Bernardino, 3-hour workout, and 3.5 hours back. Then that's after a full 8-hour days of work. And we were doing this twice a week. So Jesse thought I was doing good. I became his champion shortly after. And then after 8 months of training, 12 matches, one of them being with the Honky Tonk Man for the heavyweight title, and he let me go over on him and smash his guitar. Wow. I mean, that was an honor for me.
Yeah.
He came in as the Honky Tonk Man and let me pin him 1, 2, 3 and smash his guitar. That was a highlight of my young career, I'm telling you. So Jesse sent a tape up to Connecticut. Howard Finkel calls me, God rest his soul, and asked me if I want to try out for WWE. They're having a 10-day tryout up in Stamford. Would I like to be there? I went, first I had to get over the fact it was Howard Finkel calling me because Howard was the announcer when I used to watch. And he has an unmistakable voice. So, so I said, yeah. And I said, okay, I want to come up and try out. So when I went up there, it was the last Dory Funk dojo. That was the last one ever with Dory Funk. And Nicole Bass was there, Mark Henry was there, I was there, and Dr. Tom Pritchard. So Dr. Tom was kind of assisting Dory Funk with the dojo. And it was a 10-day tryout. And then at the end of the 10 days, I was lucky enough to get a developmental deal. And Cornette said he was going to be put in Ohio Valley Wrestling, and he would like me to be the first, at that time, WWF developmental talent to come to a territory. So they at that time they were using Ohio Valley Wrestling as a developmental territory. So I went there. I was the first one. I went July '99, and then shortly after, Brock Lesnar came, Randy Orton came, Dave Bautista came, Mark Henry, and then, as you mentioned, John Cena. But John Cena didn't come. I was a face for a long time and heavyweight champion and that kind of stuff. I got injured. I had a ruptured patella tendon, which takes all four of the quadricep muscles and rips them off your knee. So I had to recover from that. Came back, and then I came back as a heel under Boland's services. So I went from Rico, the American Gladiator champion, to Rico, the role model. And I was telling all the Louisville, which you don't do in Louisville. They don't like that. So I called them Louisville. I was your model citizen. You have to live like I live, and you will be successful in life. And to prove that, here is my prototype. And in comes John Cena. And that's how John Cena was introduced to the wrestling world. When he got signed, he came down as my prototype. And then shortly after, we became Southern Tag Team Champions. And we worked together. And as you know well, and everybody knows, John is great on the mic. And me, I'm okay. But Kenny Boland, who was the heel manager for Boland Services, was also very good on the mic. And the advantage we had, Cena and I had, is because Jim Cornette and Kenny Boland have been friends for like 40 years already. So when Jim would come and lay out the television taping, okay, I want this, I want this, I want this promo, I want this, I want that, and we'll go through it. Kenny knew Cornette for 40 years. So if Cornette missed or forgot to say something, Kenny picked it up and went, yeah, he said that, but this is what he means. I know him. And that's why John, myself, and Kenny always had great promos. And nobody cared who was the best promo artist. We were all number one in each other's eyes. But John could cut a heck of a promo. I mean, I remember going overseas. I think it was Germany or Scotland. He was doing that freestyle rap thing on the bus. And I'm telling you, it sounded like he was practicing this for years. And he was just coming off the top of his head with things and talking about people on the bus. But, and then that's where I think the Cena character came with the chain and what you don't see me now thing. Yeah. He was allowed to take off and do him, because he was good at him, So that basically, as in Stone Cold, Steve is just Steve. That's just Steve. He's a redneck, drinks beer, and tells you how it is. So Stone Cold is just Steve with the volume turned up to 10. Yeah. You see? With Cena is Cena, but the volume turned up to 10. You see? My case and both those characters were a little different, and I've already talked about it, is that both those characters are complete 180 backwards of who I am and what I've done and accomplished in life. Not saying that's anything bad, but I'm just saying Vince gave me two characters. I wasn't in charge of that. Vince gave me two characters to try to get over to stay with the company. And I'll say this, is Vince didn't want me part of the company at all. He wanted to cut me when I was in the lower league. But if it wasn't for JR, Cornette, and Stone Cold, I wouldn't have got a shot.
Why was that? What was it about you that Vince didn't think was going to work?
My age. I was 38 and a half, bouncing around the ring with these 25-year-olds and keeping up and sometimes doing better than. I was a sponge for learning. I learned from Bobby Eaton, Rip Rogers, and Ohio Valley's core guys. If it wasn't for Nick Dinsmore, who later became Eugene, Rob Conway, Flanagan, Damaja, which is Doug Basham. If it wasn't for Danny's core 4 guys, I probably wouldn't have made it. I mean, those guys looked after me. They made me look better than I was when I was, and I listened to them. I didn't get a big head or have an ego. They all had something to put into the pot of stew, and I took everybody's advice and got called up. To be a manager was kind of weird because I never managed. I was barely a wrestler, but I get called up to be Billy and Chuck's stylist. What the heck is a stylist? What am I, hairstylist? Foot stylist? But that's what they called me up. So I've answered all the way up to there. So any more questions about OVW and Cena?
No, it's actually you've come onto a good track. I was actually wanted to talk about Rico the Stylist, because when you came onto our screens, it was kind of like we've never seen this before. But what I loved about Rico the Stylist and every character you played was the unpredictable. We didn't know what you're going to do next.
I've said that on so many other interviews, and that's what the greatest compliment that the fans gave me is they said, we did not know what you were going to do from one week to the next. As Rico the Stylist and as Rico with Miss Jackie Gata, they didn't know what was going on or what was they tuned in for that, which was a very humbling and a very great compliment. And I'll tell you my secret later on in our interview. But yeah, you had to do things different because I wasn't going to be a John Cena, a Brock Lesnar, a Triple H, a Rock, or a Stone Cold. Here I am, 38 and a half years old. I'm not going to start doing steroids. I'm not going to be the biggest guy. I'm not going to be the best promo guy. I just got into wrestling at 38 and a half. I just started to know the business. I watched the business from behind the TV set, or in front of the TV set, but I knew nothing about the business. I just started. So I was still learning. So, it's just, with these characters, they're exact opposite of what I was. So where do we go now from there?
Because the one thing I remember, it was when you were against Charlie Huss and you were on top of his back, slapping his bum, and the crowd just went nuts. They found it hilarious, and it was just brilliant to watch because we'd never seen it before, and it was just opening our eyes up to everything. You had Jackie at the ring, and everyone was like, is he gay? Isn't he gay? No one knew, because we've got this guy who's really camp in the ring, but he comes out with one of the prettiest divas in WWE, so it was so good to watch.
Yeah, and well, with Rico the Stylist, you didn't know what he was either.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying anything bad, but people said you're gay. But what did I do to make you think I was gay? Because I had Wolverine sideburns, or I dressed in tiger print or alligator print. The whole wedding thing came out, and it was all a publicity stunt. So wait a minute, they are gay. They are gay. Wait a minute, they're not gay. Wait a minute, they didn't get married. Rico's pulled a sham. So is he or isn't he? So nobody ever knew. And same thing with the makeup character, as we alluded to. I went and I interviewed with Adrian Street. I asked Vince, I said, if you want me to plagiarize his character, I want to meet with him and ask him how he did it and was successful and how to bring that type of character into the millennium. Because back then he mistreated his valet, which was his wife, but, stepped on her toes, stepped on her back to get to the ring. If I'd have did that in 2000, I'd have been shot from a man in the grassy knoll, You can't do that to women now. You can't do that to anybody now.
Yeah.
So Adrian and I discussed how to bring it into the millennium. And the answer was Jackie Gata. Beautiful, young woman. And I'm with all this makeup and I'm doing all these questionable moves in the ring, but she is doting over me. And you don't see me doing anything else, but Taz, Coleman, King, Bill DeMott, Al Snow, Coach, they got it right in the commentary. If you ever listen to my matches on YouTube, they kind of say, Rico uses this stuff to get into your head to get off your game. Because then when it came down to me kicking somebody's butt, out came the moves. And you saw how crisp, and the karate kicks, and the jumping itsuguris, you know, and the sideburn stunners, and all of a sudden I turned from all happy and not giving care to whooping the crap out of you. You see, so now, is he gay? Is he not gay? You don't know.
It was the kicks that you used to come up with. That's always what I remember. You could just be standing there and bang, someone gets right to the top of the head. It was the kicks and your athleticism. It was just insane to watch, and it was a joy to watch from a fan's point of view.
I've been taking martial arts since I was a kid.
Right.
So, because I was always very small. My 9th grade year of high school, I was only 4 feet 11 and 92 American pounds. I don't know what that is in stones or what that is in your weight, you know, kilos, but I was only 98 pounds. And I learned to either fight or run. I like the running, but then I got into martial arts, and that's where all those kicks come from. And then, like I said, I was a police officer before, bodyguard, self-defense techniques. So for me to use those in the ring, I had to do the opposite. Not learn how to do them, how to slow them down so I don't knock the other person's teeth out. Because the moves I did were meant to incapacitate people. You know, they were a threat to my client, or i.e. security. And those moves are to take people out. So I had to do the reverse.
And I know this next question is what a lot of people would want to know. I mean, I definitely do, which is playing that kind of character. Did you ever get any wrestlers that were unhappy about working with you? You know, I'm not going to be part of that. Does that happen quite a lot?
Bubba Dudley, Bob Holly, Scott Steiner, I get them all. But then once Vince came over the mic and said, you will do that, everything was settled. In fact, in No Mercy, when it was 6-man tag, it was Bubba Dudley, Devon Dudley, Dawn against me, Charlie, and Jackie Gaeta. Because Charlie and Dawn and Jackie were having like a fight, a love fight. Well, Bubba didn't want to do any of my gimmicks or any of that, and said he didn't want to do it. So the road agent, I can't remember who it was, went to Vince and said, Bubba doesn't want to do any of Rico's stuff. And then all of a sudden, Bubba Dudley got called back to the green room, came back with a whole attitude, and the part in the match, it's under No Mercy, where I kissed Bubba on the lips, that was his idea. That wasn't my idea. He came up and he goes, okay, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to get Jackie in there, put her on her knees, and then I'm going to ask her for a kiss and close my eyes and pucker my lips. You sneak in, rub my head, and I'm going to, yeah. And he goes, don't do it long, but give me a kiss on the lips. I said, okay. And that's what happened. And Taz almost choked. when he saw that, he choked on his water, and it was a good spot, you know, made everybody laugh. Everybody didn't expect it, you know, but for people who understood the Rico makeup, just the Rico character, not Rico the stylist. Rico the stylist was different, but Rico character, people who understood it went with it and had good matches. You know, they let me do the stuff because the fans, I mean, I started out as a heel on Raw. When I first came out, I was supposed to be a heel. And it's the fans that turned me babyface. Because they started laughing at what I was doing to the face. And Vince got all upset and said, okay, now I'm going to turn you face. So now you're going to be a face. And then I started doing more and more of stuff. And Vince McMahon and I had a deal. And I said, how far do you want me to go with this Rico character? He says, strap a rocket to your ass and take off. I'll tell you when to back up. I said, okay, as long as we do not offend the lifestyle, this lifestyle. And Billy Chuck and myself said the same thing when we did the wedding and all the stuff prior. We will do this as long as it doesn't offend that lifestyle, because that's not what we were about. And in fact, I think Billy, Chuck, and myself received the GLAD Award from GLAD, and it sits at Stamford, Connecticut.
Well,
For celebrating that type of lifestyle and not demeaning it.
What I did kind of want to get was, of course, the Billy and Chuck wedding, because that was, I know we spoke a little bit last week about this, and that was something that's never been done. And it was really, for the time, you know, back then, it was something that a lot of people didn't know how to take it. And it was so funny to watch. And I think one of the funniest things was Eric Bischoff. You know, you see this guy and his hands shaking. And then, of course, so tell us about that story when you heard about it, the fact that Eric was going to be involved, because it was funny. It was one of the biggest comedy stories in history in WWE.
Me personally, I feel if that was on live or on Raw, that'd have been the best kayfabe event in the history of wrestling. Even better than the double Hebners with the Hulk Hogan thing. The reason why I say that is only a handful of people actually knew that the minister was Eric Bischoff. And that was the people in the inner circle. Vince came to the arena in his limousine, as he usually does, but he brought the minister. And he took him out of the limousine. He was already in makeup and everything, shaking. And Vince catered to him the whole day. Now, on a TV taping day, TV starts about 6:30, 7 o'clock, where whatever brand you tape Heat and go into Raw, or you tape Velocity, go right into SmackDown. So, but we're there at noon, and everybody sees this old minister. Vince caters to him in the catering room, goes, gets him a plate of food, and is walking him around, introducing him to everybody, puts him in the green room, and everybody thinks this is the actual minister for the commitment ceremony of Billy and Chuck. So the only people who know about it is me, Billy, Chuck, Stephanie, Rosie, Jamal, Eric, Vince, the agent for the show, which Stephanie was basically the agent for everything. Yeah. That's all it knew. And then we went through the whole ceremony, and when he gets to the end and says, "It doesn't care how long you've been together, 3 years, 3 months, 3 weeks, or 3 minutes," and then he stops. And everybody's like, well, why did he stop at 3 minutes? And also he goes, "Wait a minute," in his own voice. Did I hear myself say 3 minutes? There could have, my ears popped, because all 18,000 or 16,000 people all at once went like this.
Yeah.
And took all the air out of the room. Even the guys in the back went, "What?" And he started peeling off the prosthetics. You know, because Billy and Chuck backed out of the commitment ceremony, so I had a backup plan. And then that's when 3 Minute Warning came out, and we decimated Billy and Chuck and the scene, and where we Samoa bombed Stephanie, and then I defected to Raw. Yeah. And then the next week, I go over on Ric Flair.
That's incredible. I watched that match, and I remember the announcers couldn't believe it. The crowd, you couldn't believe it. So when they came to you and said, "Look, you're going to beat Ric Flair, one of the greatest of all time," what was your reaction?
Well, they didn't actually say it like that. Like I've said before, prior to the wedding ceremony, I only had one other large promo that had to be done right, is when Chuck proposed to Billy the week before.
Yeah.
All of my promos have been real short, like 1 or 2 liners, or just to fling it. Nothing really big. I've never had to sit there and take the mic like Stone Cold or The Rock and tell a story over the microphone. I was not that studied yet. So a page and a half was the proposal. So I had to learn a page and a half of stuff. So I learned it, and then I went off and did it. Well, the commitment ceremony was over 4 pages worth. And every time I did or said something, it would cue somebody else to hit their mark, like trigger the Godfather, trigger Eric to do this, trigger that. So if I missed my cues, people weren't going to come out, and it would have been a big mess up. So in my opinion, for me to wrestle Ric Flair, and plus Triple H was getting on Ric Flair right around that time anyway, saying he was getting old and soft. So me coming over there as a defect getting to wrestle him, and then me go over on him with my spin kick, 1, 2, 3, further played that storyline, but then gave me something special in my career.
And another thing as well with 3-minute warning, how did that come about with you working with them? Because if you look on paper, you wouldn't think it would work, but it did.
Well, they were supposed to be catastrophe, right? And they were, for a while, they got the heat. Well, when we did the Billy and Chuck thing, Billy wanted to go on his own and be a single, so that's why that all happened. And they put me with 3-minute warning, hoping to get the same heat I got for Billy and Chuck to get on Rosie and Jamal. But God rest his soul, Jamal got in trouble in Florida, and Vince fired him. So we couldn't have 2-minute warning. So Rosie went to go with Hurricane. He was a superhero in training. And then that's when they asked me to be this Adrian Street character. And that's how that went with 3-minute warning. It could have gone better, but something wasn't there. I don't know what. The chemistry was missing, like the chemistry with Billy, Chuck, and me. Or or Jackie Gata and I, the chemistry. Something was missing. It was misfiring on a cylinder or two. But Billy and Chuck scenario, great. Jackie Gata and I, great. Charles, Charlie Haas, Gata and myself off the chart.
Yeah, definitely.
So, when it clicks.
I think a lot of wrestling fans watching this will be very surprised because for us, we were just growing with you. We loved Rico. We loved the character, and it was someone you look forward to seeing. And then when we found out you were no longer working it, it's kind of like, hang on a minute. We've just invested into this character. We love him. Why did you go? So what happened there? Did you ask to be released?
No, actually I didn't. I asked for a raise. I had a 3-year contract, and I asked for $1,000 a week raise. And then I found out by Johnny Ace they were releasing me.
Wow, just because you asked for a raise?
That's the way I think it was, because I just held the tag belts.
Yeah.
I was just tag champion. We were going. We had pictures that was going to be on the front of the WWE magazine. All the way up, you're released. Okay. And I told him, I said, listen, if I go, I don't come back. And I said, I give you 90 days. And if you don't give me that raise, I'm not coming back. Well, February 2nd was the 90 days. I didn't go back. I was on a plane to Japan that night, winning the All-Asian tag titles with Bull Buchanan.
Nice.
That night, yeah.
Well,
I see Vince has that habit of playing with people. He'll fire them, bring them back, fire them, bring them back. Yeah. You don't do that. I'm 30. I was 40 years old when I debuted on television. I'm 44 at this time. I don't play kid games. You pay me what I'm worth, or else I go somewhere else. And I've done that my whole life. I was looking for a job when I got here. I'll be looking for a job when I leave. I'm not going to, because you think I want to be on TV, not get what I'm worth. I gave a lot, especially with the 2 characters you gave me. You gave me these characters to fail, because like I said, Steve is Steve turned up to 10. John Cena is John Cena turned up to 10. Well, you turn up the real Rico up to 10, you're going to get a cross between Cena and Stone Cold. And my background speaks for itself. You're not going to get any of these 2 characters. So I had to become what they call a method actor. I had to absorb this character or think about this character. Because when they flew me up and told me I was going to be the stylist for Billy and Chuck, they didn't say what. They didn't say what kind of stylist. They didn't say how to dress. They didn't say how to do anything. You're their stylist. And the first night I went out, spin kicked Matt Hardy's head off, and they retained the titles. And then the next week I went home. I started thinking, stylist. What do they mean by stylist? So I thought about it. I said, you know what? Light bulb came on. I'm going to be an image consultant. I'm going to be one of them high panache New York people that changes people's image. and I'm going to be that person. So I'll change the tag team champions image. They will be not only champions, they will be the best dressed, the best looking, the most desired, blah, 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 blah. You know, and I grew those Wolverine sideburns better than Wolverine did. So those are real. So, you know, they didn't give me anything. WWE didn't give me anything. So I developed the stylist character myself. And then I called the Godfather, because I've known Godfather for years because he's from Vegas. I knew him as Bear. And I said, where'd you get all those crazy clothes? I need to get some clothes like that. He said, yeah, you go to the flea market down on Oki. They're all over the place. I went down there and I started picking stuff out. Tiger stripe, snake skin, alligator skin, leopard print. Yeah, I was pulling everything off the shelf. And that's what I started wearing. And if I wore the blue YMLO short, I had blue lenses, blue belly button earrings. Red was the red lenses, red shirt, red rings, tiger stripe, you know, snake skin, alligator, you know, I just played the part like I'm it. Same thing as Rico the role model, but I turned it up to 10. So I golfed the character.
Do you know, with that as well, it was just you got into it so well and you played it so well. So when you went over to Japan, like you mentioned earlier, did you feel you could be yourself? Did you have that freedom to actually display who the real Rico is?
Ooh, that was a rough 3 weeks because I was lost, because they knew me from WWE, from the two characters, and here I am with still the sideburns trying to develop a me that I've never developed yet in the ring. Rico never got to develop a Rico, just a plain old Rico in the ring. When I came in, I was a manager. I had to develop the stylist character. And then after the stylist, I had to develop the Adrian Street character. So I never had time to put me and dial me up to 10 in the ring. I went out there and did the wrestling, but they liked me in Japan because of the martial art moves. They were all new, inventive, different, and you know, and they were real, actual moves, basically. You know, so they appreciated the talent, I guess you want to call it. So, but at the end of 3 weeks, I just said, I can't do this. I'm 44. I can't keep coming to Japan for 3 weeks, leaving my family here. So I retired champion, sent back the belt, and went into police academy in 05. March of 05, and then by September of 05, I was hired by a department and became a police officer. And then I was hired a month and a half after that as a part-time officer for the United States Marshals as a district security officer. So I had 2 police jobs. And I did that for 11 years till I got sick.
What I did want to ask was, do you have any relationship now with WWE? Do you keep in contact with anyone? Have you ever spoke to Vince since you left?
No. Kenny Bolin is the only person I really talked to. Chris Jericho, he did come to my house, interview me for Talk is Jericho. He did donate $3,000 to my GoFundMe page when I was sick.
I've seen that.
I haven't talked to him since, but he stepped up when I needed him the most, and he got the word out that I was sick. But as far as anybody else, no. I went to the last event, which was a couple events ago here, and I got in. I had to convince the guard who I was because I had no sideburns. He didn't think I was really me. So he let me in. The head of security came out. They were at the T-Mobile Arena, and then I went to the back to see people if I knew people, and there was a lot of new people. And I went in the locker room, and I looked around. There was like 30 guys in there. I didn't know one except Kofi. And I barely knew Kofi. And then I looked around and I kind of did that awkward no look and then go for the door thing. And Kofi, hey, Rico. I turned around and said, hey, how's it going? How have you been? He started talking and this and that. And he remembered me from my days. And I think everybody else did, but they didn't know what to do. And Kofi, in the middle of this room of 20, 30 guys, said, hey, y'all, this is Rico. Y'all need to come up and say hi and give your respect. And everybody got up and shook my hand, and everybody knew who I was. They said we loved your work. One guy says I'm trying to model myself after that heel character makeup guy, and they were all respectful. So I mean, that was really nice of Kofi. And then on the way around the arena before the show, I saw Stephanie and I saw Triple H together. Well, I walked up to say hello, and Stephanie just popped up with, "Well, how you been?" And I went, "Well, I'm great now." And she looked at me, she goes, "Well, what do you mean now?" And I said, "You didn't know I was sick for 3 years and I almost died?" "No, we were unaware of it." And then Triple H and her look at each other. We didn't know. If we knew, we'd have helped. I said, "Well, thank you, but I'm surprised you didn't know."
Yeah.
And kind of got hurt feelings. And because Jericho was part of WWE when I was sick. And I know he told some people how bad I was when he got back after interviewing me, because he said it on his show. So I felt a disingenuousness right about there.
Yeah.
Very, very heavy on my heart that made me say, "Well, hey, I'm glad you're better. Heard you were sick. Would have been a lot better if we never heard."
Yeah.
Everybody in the wrestling world knew I was sick. So that was my last time, and then I really don't keep in touch with anybody else. But that's not a good story, but that's what happened.
I suppose now the next question is there anybody that surprised you? So someone that you expected to come forward when they found out you weren't very well and actually be there to support you. Was there somebody that you expected that just didn't come through? Because I mean, John Cena, you had a good friendship with him. So did he ever make contact?
I thought I did. I haven't talked to him since he got after I left WWE in 2005. Hasn't called, hasn't done anything. Not even a card, not an email, not even a "hope you feel better" on the GoFundMe page or the PayPal. I never heard from him. But hey, everybody's everybody, to each his own. We were friends while we were friends, working. We worked great together. I mean, anybody doubts that, go look at the old OVW tapes. He always used to tell me, "You do the fancy stuff. I just want to kick, stomp, and punch." I said, "Okay." And that's what we did. It worked.
And I've only spoke to you for an hour on Skype the other day. We've been speaking on email, and I don't know you greatly, but from what I do know, you come across as someone that's so genuine. And I think when you have a friend, you are a friend, and you're someone that will be there for someone and support someone. So I guess to hear that is actually, for me, and I think a lot of fans will find it heartbreaking, because for someone that is genuine and given to not receive the same back when you would expect it is, it's disappointing to hear.
Yeah, it did disappoint me, but you never know. You go through your life, you meet people, touch people, and you go. You never expect anything.
Yeah.
I still don't expect nothing. I just maybe an email, or he knew Bolin because we were both part of Bolin Services. He could have said, "Hey, Kenny, tell Rico, I hope he feels better."
Yeah.
Something, anything. Like I said, the GoFundMe page was out there for a long time. He could have just put, "Hey, buddy, hope you get better. Thoughts or prayers are with you." I mean, that's what I would have liked. Of course, it didn't happen, but don't fault him. I mean, that's just, maybe he's that type of person.
Cool.
I don't know. We did have a good professional career.
The next thing I wanted to do was I watched some of your matches, and I wanted to kind of get your opinions on some of the people that you've worked with. So I'm going to give you some names that you've worked with and just get what they're like to work with, what they're like as people. Did you get on? Were you friends? So the Dudley Boys.
Devon, fantastic. Bubba, don't care for it.
Then I've got John. Well, we spoke about John Cena. So what about Goldust?
Goldust was hilarious. Dustin Reynolds is fun. In fact, I mean, I know if they won't do it, but I'd come back into makeup and go with him to AEW and us be a tag team.
That would be good. I would love to see that.
Oh, I'll go back in pink if Dustin will take me. I need a few months of training to finite things, but I'd love Dustin and Goldust and me to be partners and go for the tag straps on AEW.
Have to share this clip with him. What was Ric Flair like?
Uh, very professional. From my end, tons of respect given because of.
Yeah.
I mean, that goes without saying. God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we should listen more than we talk. And that's the philosophy I had around Mr. Flair. So I didn't, whatever he said was gold to me. Whatever he wanted to do was gold with me. Vince decided the ending, and I just got to wrestle with an icon. So that's how I felt.
Booker T?
Booker T. I'm really mixed with that. When I had when I had my full face paint instead of the lines,
yeah,
it was told to me that Booker T was complaining because the sparkles were coming off my face and then getting in his hair, and his girlfriend at the time was saying he was going to strip joints, accusing him of going to strip joints after he wrestled me. Okay, so they asked me to tone down the makeup. So it went from the full face to the lines and just the stuff over the eyes. So I had to tone down. That's my memory of Booker T.
Like that?
Like that, yeah. See, it wasn't like that. If you look at some of the earlier pictures, it was a full face exotic Adrian paint all the way down.
What about terrifying, but Kane?
Kane?
Yeah.
Oh. He is country, corn-fed strong, but it looks like he's killing you in the ring, but he takes very good care of you. I wrestle Kane anytime.
Jeff Hardy? Jeff Hardy?
Jeff, you ever seen a Raggedy Andy doll? That's what it's like to wrestle Jeff Hardy. He bends in ways and falls in ways that you have to dream, because I did this and you fell that way. You're supposed to fall this way. I mean, he's like wrestling a Raggedy Andy doll. But a nice guy, very polite. I'd love to wrestle.
What about Val Venus?
Oh, funny. We had a good angle going. I don't know why they didn't continue with it, but he wanted to get Jackie to go into his stable, and then I was trying to get into his adult films. We had a really good angle. For some reason, the writers didn't go with it. But when he was Sean Morley, wrestled him. I wrestled Val Venus. Works great. Loved wrestling his matches. The few we had, I felt we could have a whole angle and come up to a whole bunch of stuff. But the few times I got to wrestle him, he was great.
What about Brock Lesnar?
Brock. Well, with he and I, we came up together. So we respected each other, and I didn't get to wrestle him when he got mega, but in the dark matches. I mean, it looked like he killed me, but he always took care of me. Was always mindful. Just a gifted, strong young man. To be honest, I didn't care for what he showed himself in public to other people, but with me, he was always great.
Yeah.
You know, so I gotta give him that. And I even saw him a few times here in Vegas when I was an officer. Had a few times to run into him in a couple places, and I was a cop. And we spoke, we exchanged, and that was that.
What about, I know this is a match that you personally like, but so Rey Mysterio?
He's gold. The guy was not afraid to let me do what I was capable of doing.
Yeah.
And let me do it. And still, you know, he was going over, but he let me showcase me. A lot of wrestlers, a lot of top guys didn't want me to showcase my stuff. They didn't want it. But Ray, Stevie Richards, Tommy Dreamer, people like that let me do my thing. And it got pops from the crowd and stuff like that. But you saw that match.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
That was a nonstop 8-minute match. Nonstop. And trying to catch Rey Mysterio is like me, like him running all over me like a 4-wheeler on a mountain. I mean, he's hard to catch. I mean, you got to be there. If you're not there, he misses the move, you know. Cool. So you got to be on your A game to wrestle him.
The next one will be interesting. Scott Steiner.
Oh. He's one of the ones that said, I'm not doing that shit. And he didn't. And it's when he had Stacy Keibler in his corner, and I had Jackie. So it was kind of a quick match. Then I had a tag match with him with Chris Nowinski. That was kind of like a fill-in match because he dissed Chris, and then Chris used me as a backup to get him. But Scott didn't want to play well. He wanted to take his toys and go home.
Last but not least, The Big Show.
Oh, wow. Paul's a nice guy.
Yeah.
I remember before I got called up, he came down, and it was Mark Henry and I against Big Show and Eugene, eventually Eugene, and he's Nick Dinsmore. So we're in Huntington, West Virginia, and Show and I are in the ring. Now, he's got huge hands. I'm talking huge. Well, he doesn't chop you like this. He chops you like this. That hurt. Now, he's 7 feet, and you put another 3 feet on his arm, that's as high as a basketball net. That's coming down 10 feet to hit you with this big, he has fingers. He has sausages for fingers. They're bratwurst. Okay? So we're wrestling, and he puts me in the corner, puts my head back, and he yells at the audience, and the only way Big Show can, you know, and he holds up one finger. Of course, the audience says yes, and he hits me right across my chest. His whole hand just dots my whole chest. Well, I actually go down to one knee, and I try to crawl to the next corner just to get some distance and catch my breath, and it stung. So he reaches down and grabs me and puts me in the same corner and pushes my head back and does it again. And the only way he could communicate. Of course, the audience says, hit him again. So he raises that big old hand and smacks me again. Well, now I'm on both knees. I'm like, geez, my chest is on fire. I'm like, oh, man. And then he picks me up. And he tries to do it again in the same corner. Again with the same, and I went, not this time. I dropped down on knees and hands. I ran across the ring on all fours and tagged in Mark Henry. And I went to Mark Henry. Rolled out of the ring, grabbed somebody's soda, I don't know who it was, and poured it on my chest and started doing this. Because I tell you, my chest stung. But I was like, that's me in the Big Show. A nice guy until you piss him off. Now, I never pissed him off, but I saw him get mad one time. And I don't even think it was the extent that he could get mad. It's when Tough Enough was going on. And they brought the contestants. And I think it was a slam or something. And one guy didn't sell it. Didn't sell the slam. And we were in a locker room. Now it's Funaki and myself talking. And there's these open lockers. You know, it's like a basketball locker room. And Funaki and I are standing a locker room apart. And I hear Big Show get mad. And I turn. And this Tough Enough kid was smarting off to Big Show. And Big Show took that hand and hit him in the chest. And this guy flew, I'm saying 7 feet, 8 feet in the air with his arms and legs like this, right past Funaki and I, into the locker and down. And then Show walked away. And I just looked at Funaki and I went, he's not mad at me. And there that boy sat for a few minutes pondering what just happened.
Yeah, cool.
So Big Show does have a temper, but like I said, he doesn't. To me, never lost it. He's fun to wrestle. Hard to wrestle because he's so darn big. I mean, what do you do to somebody that big and who's really, that strong?
We've got a question from Ryan.
Okay.
By the way, Ryan's a huge fan of yours in the UK, so I want to point that out.
Thank you, Ryan.
So he said, were you really shot as a police officer?
I've been shot 3 different times.
Wow.
Two ricochets and a point blank. And I've been stabbed twice, and I've been hit by 2 automobiles.
Okay, you don't. It doesn't sound that nice at all.
Yeah. So yes, I've really been shot.
And then next, he said, "Why did you split from Billy and Chuck?" I think we kind of answered that a little bit earlier. But he said, "Why did you?"
Billy wanted to go into singles, and he wanted to be the badass Billy Gunn. Well, that was going all great. Then Undertaker came back as the American badass, right. And Vince went, "Well, your name ain't that. You're the one Billy Gunn now," and that's how he got the one Billy Gunn, which flopped. But when the Undertaker came back from Undertaker to the American Badass, Mr. Badass had to drop his name.
Well, do you know, for me, being a fan, to actually get to talk to you about your journey into wrestling and different things, you know, your career, the moments that you've shared, and the frustrations that you had, and it's, you know, sad to see how it went as well. But how are you feeling now? How's everything going with you? What do you do to keep busy these days?
Well, now with this Corona thing going around, and I'm still working. After I started getting better, after April's tests, I started a small job at a small security company to see if I could go back into the workforce. Because I don't want to be disabled all my life. I mean, if I'm not disabled, I don't want to be getting a disabled check. If I can work, I'm going to work. You know, I'm not 20 hours a day in the bed. So I started off with a little job. And then I got hired by a company. And now, due to my police certificate, I guard state facilities, you know, unemployment, welfare, Department of Transportation, and I'm a uniformed security officer now. And working the long hours, different types of scheduling to see if my body can take it. Because I'm 58 years old now. I'll be 59 this October. I'm no spring chicken, but I'm not an old guy. You know, actually, it's not my age that's the detriment. It's my mileage. I put a lot of miles on this body. So my age, I'm young. Chronologically, I'm young. So I'm doing good at this security company and doing this. And in fact, 2 weeks ago, I resubmitted my application to go back to the department I had to medically retire from as an officer. So I've resubmitted, and it's been verified. So amidst this Corona-19 thing, that's why I think things are moving slow. I've also had a couple other state officer agencies ask me to come join them. So it looks like after this COVID-19 thing is done and things loosen up, and I could get back into police work and then finish, because I only have 11 years in. I need 9 more for my 20. So I figure if I get on at 58, 59, I can work till I'm 67, 68, or work till 65 and then buy a couple of years into my retirement and then retire and then get a security job or something, because I'm not the kind of sit home in a rocking chair type of retire guy. I got to be doing something. You see my guys here.
I love them.
They're spoiled. They're spoiled. They love daddy being home. I mean, their water's changed almost twice a week. Look how clear that is. I mean, these are my guys. I mean, the albino one, that's Runt. That's a albino tiger Oscar. And then the one in the back, that's Eek. He's a tiger Oscar. And the one hiding over here is a Jack Dempsey. And I grew them when they were this big.
Like
now they're 6 inches huge. These are South American Amazon cichlids. And then I've got my other cichlid tank, which is my African cichlid tank. And I've got blue acaras, geophaguses, red tapajos, tiger barbs. And there's the 3 amigos right there. They kind of hang in a group.
Yeah.
They love the screen. See that they're looking at you now? Everybody's coming out of the cage. They want to see who they're talking to. And the little one on top and one in the corner here, they're called Bolivian ram cichlids. Bolivian ram cichlids. I call them my little cartel because I got 5 of them.
It looks like a
Bolivian cartel, and they're spoiled. When I go back to work full time, they're gonna need an antidepressant because Dad's not gonna be here. And like I was telling you earlier, where you're sitting, where the computer's sitting, is my bed. So when I want to go to sleep at night, I have these lights on a timer, and I just roll to my right, and I watch them, and I go to sleep, and then the lights go, and then they go to sleep.
That's so nice. It sounds like the best love story between a guy and fish that you could get.
And me being ADD, ADHD, OCD, I even got a PhD. You know what a PhD stands for?
No, I know what one is. Don't know what it stands for.
No, but you know what my PhD stands for?
No.
Piled higher and deeper. That's my PhD. But I do have the OCD and the ADD. I do have that. I've had that since I was a young kid. And to be focused and stuff like that. And I treat it as a positive instead of a negative. I don't take medication. You know, these guys are my focus. You know, right now, my job, you know, when I was a police officer, that was my focus. So I use stuff like that. My workouts, which I can't wait to get back in the gym. Oh my gosh. I've put on 4 pounds. I'm almost pushing 210. I don't like it.
So you'll be working out when you're able to go back.
Oh, I can't wait to work out. You know, because I had my cardio days. I had my 3 little weight days, you know, and it was something to do. And I was just mind releasing. You know, nowadays with what's going on, I mean, I put in 40 hours a work week. I do that in 2.5 days. I do 16 hours on a Friday, 16 hours on a Saturday, and then 8 hours on a Sunday. There's my 40. And then Monday, Tuesday, I got to rest. That's it, boy. I'm wiped out. I can't do what I could do when I was 40.
Well,
So,
I got to say, thank you so much for taking the time to join us in the UK and share so much and be so open, so honest. I've got to say, for people that, you know, because I've spoke to you a couple of times, one of the nicest people I think I've ever spoke to in an interview, you know, without a doubt. So kind, and it's just nice to hear someone be so open and honest about their career.
well, I want everybody out there, UK, and until I talked to you, I didn't know I had a UK fan base. I really didn't. And that's what I miss about wrestling. I don't miss the tables. I don't miss the chairs. I don't miss the traveling. You know, I don't miss the schedule. But I really do miss the fans. I mean, I told you this, and I'm telling after every show. I don't care if it was a house show, a TV taping, a pay-per-view. I always went out and signed autographs and took pictures. I still get stuff now from fans. They mail me stuff to my house, cards, photos of us together with a self-addressed envelope. Sign it. Could you send it back? And I do that. I mean, they know my address. I autograph. I just got all my trading cards from a gentleman. He wants me to autograph, send a pin, sent a self-addressed thing. He wants me to autograph them all and send them back. I just got it today. I'm going to autograph them, send them back tonight.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and I do miss the fans. I really do, because they understood the character. See, they understood Rico, the character, both characters. And those are the guys. I mean, you're the fans that made it happen, because Vince didn't want it to happen. But you guys did, and you guys understood what I was doing, and you understood where I was going. And like you said, you wanted to see what was he going to do this week. What could he do better than he did last week, you know? And another, being honest, I got most of my ideas from the fans. When I went out and signed autographs, there'd always be somebody going, "Hey, you know what would be funny?" I go, "What? You know what would be funny?" I said, "No, tell me." I'd reach in, pull out a pen and paper and go, "Tell me about it." And they tell me what they thought was funny. So I'd go home after a week and I'd put the ideas down, and I treated my wrestling career like an NFL player treats their 16-game season. You watch tapes, you watch things, you watch what this other guy does. Well, I took what the fans did. What do you want to see from me? And I would say, okay, this would work here, this would work there. And I play poker. You know, they give me 5, I'd go, okay, give me 3. And they'd give me the other 3 cards, and I would go, okay, this would work, that would work. And then I would bounce it off the road agents like Fit Finley, Pat Patterson, Chris Jericho, Chris Benoit. You know, Chris helped me with a lot of my matches, with a lot of my moves when I was going through, because I spent almost 5 years with the guy.
Yeah, cool.
And he, his background, look where he came from. I said, where would this go? How about here? He goes, no. And he'd chew on his coffee straws. No, that would go better over here. Okay, good, thanks. And then I would go, and sure enough, it went better there. So the fans, if I'm saying anything, the fans had as much to do with the character as I did with the character, because they told me what they wanted. And I figured out a way. That was my homework assignment on my 2 days off. Figure out how to do what they want to see, and then show it to them and make them laugh. Let them escape reality for a little bit, and get into the character. Tell a story in the ring. Why was I riding him like a horse? How did I get to ride him like a horse? What professional wrestling move did I do to get him into a position so I could do my funny things to get into his head? You see, and the fans, that's what they want. And that's what's missing now. That's what's missing. Even with the Corona-19, there's so many things they could do with the wrestling to bring back the fans. Because I only watch it now because my son-in-law watches it. And I'll go by and I'll see the ring and I'll go, watch, he's going to do this next. And sure enough, whatever I said, they do.
Yeah.
It's predictable. And if I can do that, being gone out of the business 15 years, imagine watching somebody who watches the business every week. They can predict it. And the fans are predicting what the high spots are. The wrestlers aren't telling stories no more. And it's cheating the fans. They pay to get entertained, and with this coronavirus, I think the stupidest thing that the WWE is doing is when they come out, they raise their hands to the crowd, they lift their belts, and they're coming out to entrances. Why? Why? Yesterday, Bobby Lashley. I guess the Money in the Bank thing happened, and Bobby Lashley got disqualified by the referee. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So he's fighting this one guy, and he gets disqualified. Gets tossed out. So now he's coming back with a rematch with this guy in a no disqualifying match. Anything counts anywhere. Right? He's supposed to be doing this. This is what I catch. So Bobby Lashley and this guy get in the ring. Now me, if I, Rico, was put in that position where a referee disqualified me and this guy did something, and I don't like this guy because I got disqualified from MITB, I'm not doing anything but beating your ass. What did Bobby Lashley do? He locks up with the guy. What are you going to go to wrestling technique? You've already done this to the guy. Come on. And if I was in a no disqualification match, anything goes, the first person I'd have punched was the referee for disqualifying me. Because I can't get disqualified. The ref's going to take a bump. Because I'm going to show you, the fans, that I'm nothing to be messed with. You disqualify me and then put me in a no disqualifying match? Ref, I'm going to talk to you. Right across your melon. And then I'm going after that guy. Not with a lockup. I'm not going to do a wrestling move. You got me disqualified. I'm beating your butt. I'm going right for your knee. I'm hurting you. I am not worried about technique. Now, how does that sound to you as a fan than what happened on TV?
We spoke about this last week, and it is so right in what you're saying, because we can predict everything that's happening now, and that doesn't make it exciting. What we used to like was seeing something that you didn't know what was going to happen, and it shocked you, and that shock factor's gone.
Yeah. And okay, you can do all the high spots you want, but you know what? It's going to get to the point where people are going to be breaking their necks left and right. Okay, there's only so much the human body can do. Look at the Hardys. Look at Edge and Christian. Okay, look at all these other guys. High spots are good, and they're supposed to be for a certain time. Not in every match. Not every match is going to have a high spot, and not every match is where everybody's got to get their quote-unquote shit in. Not everybody has to get your stuff in all the time. That's what makes it special when you do it.
Of course.
Okay? And you got the writers have to start thinking, and the wrestlers got to start thinking. You're putting on a promotion as a MMA style thing. You're mad at somebody. I guarantee Conor McGregor did not want to go touch gloves with that other guy that he threw the cart through the bus with when they had their rematch. No, that started off in your face, kicking. First 45 seconds was just, they're looking for the lucky punch. They're looking for the punch from Georgia. To not get, you got to think the same way in wrestling now. That's the way mentality goes ever since MMA. We got to put more reality into our wrestling. Still take care of everybody, but you got to tell a story in that ring that the fans want to see and they want to care about. Just like in the 80s. You knew these characters were good. There was no tweeners.
Yeah.
You can't root for a tweener. Okay, I like him because I like Otis because I feel sorry for him. I like Otis. Why do you like Otis? His body, his wrestling moves, his masculinity, his brains. Why do you like Otis? Except for sympathy.
Yeah.
And quit trying to stuff people down other people's throats. Roman Reigns. And like I think I told you this, I like what they're doing with Drew McIntyre. I hope they don't stop. That's the first bright idea they've had. And I hope they follow up on it. And Drew's playing the part.
Yeah.
It's a true life thing. He's just dialing himself up to 10. He doesn't have to be a method actor. That's him, 10.
Yeah.
I just hope they continue with that because that's a great story. Like I said, I'll go tag up with Goldust and just do something.
We're going to send that clip to him. But thank you for joining us and thanks for sharing your career with us today. Thank you.